Hey there and welcome, my name is Carlos Barretts, and in this video we are talking about rules heavy, rules light and crunchiness in tabletop role-playing games. And I have seen some very good discussions on why we call some systems crunchy, and it seems to be a dissonance in what people expect by a crunch system and crunch heavy systems more specifically, and why I try to explain at least two currents of thought. But first, some basic definition on what we, or at least I understand by the terms, since they are widely accepted but not their definitions. Almost everyone has some idea of what they think about a rule heavy or a rule light system, although where to draw the line is usually a point of disagreement. And okay, rules light or rules heavy, they are related not just to the amount of rules per se, but rather how the rules are organized as well. Picture this. You have a system that have plenty of rules. It is huge. It has 400 pages. But defining every aspect of the game and everything that you might want to think about when you are trying during a session, it's not something that will define it as rule light or rule heavy, because even if it has this amount of rules, but they are basically the same mechanics, just changing which stat, for instance, you would add to the roll, it may seem like a rule heavy system. However, is it really? And no, I'm not talking about the big dragon game, okay? So for me, a rule-heavy system is a game that has distinct mechanics for plenty of things, to a point that you might need to frequently revisit the rulebook or even books to clarify things during the game. This might be due to tons of tables to determine outcomes, interactions between different rules and how they work with one another, different modifiers for every situation, and so on, like depends on the weather and everything. This is not a comprehensive list of what define a rules heavy, but you get the idea of the spirit of what I think is a rule heavy game. You have games like Shadowrun RPG and GURPS that they are regular mentions for rule heavy systems and what people understand about it. And journaling or narrative games that use prompts are not included here, even though you keep referring to the book throughout the game. But it is not because it has tons of rules and you need to reference them, this kind of mechanics, but because you use it, it's a content as prompt and not the mechanics itself that makes you need to visit it. On the other corner, to contrapose that, you have rules light or rules light. You can find both spellings on the wild internet, the one with light L-I-G-H-T and the one with light with L-I-T-E. Either way, it refers to the fact that you have a basic mechanic that is usually advocated either by the players in general or by a central figure like the narrator or game master, and how to apply it. There are usually not long lists of skills or abilities that need to be frequently referenced. At most, you will need them during character creation, and that is it. You can build on the concept and aim towards something that is more referred to as minimalist design, which, as the name suggests, is trying to take the rules light approach towards the extreme. And with games like Later Than Feelings, or so many others that are done in single page or pamphlet formats, where you have all the game in that small pamphlet or one page and everything is there. And then it's minimalistic. You have only that core mechanics and it's done. You can play with that. Although the format is not a mandatory thing, okay? With that out of the way, we get to how it actually interacts with the concept of crunchiness. One thing is that crunch is just rules. Some people think about between the two ways I will explain. One is that crunch is just referring to the rules. So basically, a crunch heavy system would be a rules heavy system and whatnot. So using crunch heavy and crunch light as synonyms for rules heavy and rules light respectively. This is something that is widespread throughout the hobby, and I've seen it mentioned and used plenty of times. However, the second approach, and that I most recently saw mentioned by Momatos some weeks ago perhaps, I'm not sure, but what is time in this current moment, right? This approach refers to crunchiness as something more closely related to cognitive workload, than to this pure mechanic idea of what defines crunch, or even mathematics and statistics way. So it's decorrelates from this crunch is something that is mechanical or because it requires great use of math or statistics, and more in what is the cognitive workload that it puts in the game, in the people playing the game. And what do I mean by that? Well, in layman terms, cognitive workload is the amount of mental effort that one needs to apply to perform a task. And the quantity is highly subjective, okay? I understand that. Not everyone experiences cognitive workload the same way and have the same cognitive workload for each activity that they use. Okay, that is something that I have clear in my mind. However, what this idea entails is that although a game might be light on the amount of spoons that you need to handle, the rules per se and the mechanics, it can put an expectation that you apply a higher effort on the narrative part, requiring a higher cognitive load and workload in summation of all the parts of the game, the mechanics and the other parts, the narrative part of the game. This can lead to games that are rules light to still be actually considered crunchy in the way that you need to crunch your spoons to play it. By role-playing heavily, this is one thing, coming up with stories and descriptions and so on. I mean, you can then consider some games that use implicit rules and understanding to count as crunchy, although they do not count as rules heavy, or even systems that use tokens to manage, so you have a lot of resources that you have to manage with tokens and lists that you do not have to refer to the book, but you need to manage them. Although they do not have a lot of rules to engage with them, you need to put a lot of effort in playing the game in other parts, not the mechanical part per se, or not perhaps the mathematical part and the dice and the mechanics that they use to conflict resolution. And I can already hear people coming and saying that I am actually redefining crunchiness, and okay, that might be valid criticism, but I see it as something that is not clearly defined yet. And it's even less defined than rules light and rules heavy. Thus, it is still open to a precise definition that does not have to feature predefined ideas. This goes a bit on some other discussions about having precise terms for tabletop RPGs in general and what define and how to configure and how to define each one of the games. As well as some definitions that are difficult not just in tabletop RPGs like low and high magic and wide magic that some people consider, some people not. So, but these are tangential subjects. It's not the thing that we are thinking about here, is how we think about crunch. So I think that that's it. This is the video. If you like the video, like the video, share, subscribe. You know how internet works. Let me know your ideas, what you agree with and what you disagree in the comments. And if you think that crunch can be defined like that or not. And if you feel that you have some crunch heavy games that are actually rules light game. So you can also check my Ko-fi and itch.io page with my games. The link is in the description as always. And I think that's it. And I see you all in my next video. So see ya.